The vast hall was filled with a quiet tension as thousands of Ukrainians gathered, many carrying the weight of grief and uncertainty. The war had left scars on every family, and the faces in the crowd reflected a mix of hope, exhaustion, and longing for peace. When Pope Leo XIV entered, the atmosphere shifted. His presence was both a comfort and a reminder of the world's attention on their suffering. As he approached the podium, the silence grew deeper, anticipation hanging in the air. Pope Leo XIV began his greeting with a voice steady and compassionate. He acknowledged the pain and resilience of the Ukrainian people, speaking not as a distant leader, but as someone who had followed their struggles closely. "I share in the pain of this senseless war," he declared, his words echoing through the hall. The phrase struck a chord. Many in the audience had never heard such direct language from a religious leader of his stature. Some wept openly. Others clung to one another, finding solace in the Pope's recognition of their suffering. He continued describing the devastation he had witnessed through reports and testimonies. He spoke of families separated, cities destroyed, and the daily fear that had become routine for so many. The Pope did not shy away from the harsh realities, nor did he offer empty platitudes. Instead, he called the war what it was: senseless, brutal, and a violation of human dignity. His words resonated with those who felt forgotten by the world, offering a rare sense of solidarity from the heart of the Vatican. As he spoke, Pope Leo XIV addressed not only the victims, but also the broader international community. He challenged world leaders to act with courage and compassion, urging them to seek peace and justice above all else. No political ambition, no national interest can justify the suffering inflicted on innocent people, he said, his tone unwavering. The message was clear: the Church would not remain silent in the face of injustice, and he would use his voice to demand accountability. The Pope's greeting also included a prayer for the dead and for those still living in fear. He asked for divine comfort for the wounded, the grieving, and the displaced. He called on the faithful everywhere to remember Ukraine in their prayers and to offer practical support wherever possible. The appeal was both spiritual and practical, inviting solidarity that transcended borders and politics. As the speech concluded, there was a moment of profound silence. Many in the hall bowed their heads, some overcome with emotion. The Pope's words had offered no easy answers, but they had acknowledged the reality of suffering and the urgent need for peace. For the Ukrainian community, the greeting was more than a gesture. It was a lifeline, a sign that their pain had not gone unnoticed. After the Pope's address, the hall remained hushed, the gravity of his words still settling over the crowd. Many Ukrainians in attendance later described feeling seen for the first time by the global Church, their anguish acknowledged not as a distant tragedy, but as a shared human wound. Some clutched photographs of loved ones lost or missing, while others quietly wiped away tears, comforted by the sense of solidarity radiating from the papal presence. Pope Leo XIV moved among the people, pausing to offer blessings and listen to brief stories shared by those who managed to approach him. His gestures were gentle and deliberate, each handshake and embrace carrying the weight of empathy. For many, these moments became deeply personal, a memory to hold on to amid the uncertainty of war. The Pope's willingness to listen, even for a few seconds, was a reminder that their suffering was not invisible. As news of the Pope's greeting spread, it quickly became a headline across international media. Commentators noted the unusually direct language he used to describe the conflict, calling it senseless and condemning the violence in unequivocal terms. Analysts debated the possible diplomatic consequences of such a strong statement from the Vatican, while faith leaders from other traditions expressed support for his call to peace. The message reverberated not only within the Catholic community, but also among secular audiences, many of whom had grown accustomed to more cautious language from religious authorities. In Ukraine, the Pope's words were replayed on television and shared widely online. Political leaders issued statements thanking him for his support, while local priests and bishops organized prayer services in response to his appeal. The sense of unity and hope was palpable, even as the realities of war persisted. For a brief moment, the Pope's greeting cut through the noise of propaganda and despair, offering a vision of solidarity that transcended politics. The Vatican, meanwhile, received a flood of messages from around the world. Some came from Ukrainian refugees and their families expressing gratitude for the Pope's compassion. Others arrived from diplomats and world leaders, some praising his courage, others cautioning against further involvement in the conflict. Within the Holy See, advisors discussed the broader implications of the Pope's stance, weighing the risks and responsibilities that came with such a public declaration. As the day drew to a close, the Pope returned to his private quarters, carrying with him the stories and faces of those he had met. He spent time in prayer, reflecting on the suffering he had witnessed and the role of the Church in times of crisis. His actions that day would be remembered not only for their symbolism, but for the genuine comfort they brought to a people in pain. In the days following the Pope's greeting, the impact continued to ripple through Ukrainian communities and beyond. Churches filled with people seeking solace, many lighting candles beneath icons of peace and protection. Local clergy reported a renewed sense of purpose among their congregations as the Pope's words seemed to breathe new life into their prayers and outreach efforts. Volunteers organized drives to support displaced families, inspired by the call for practical solidarity that had echoed from Rome. International organizations also took note. Humanitarian groups referenced the Pope's statement in their appeals for aid, emphasizing the need for compassion and immediate action. Some reported an uptick in donations and volunteer inquiries, attributing the surge to the global attention brought by the papal address. In diplomatic circles, the Vatican's position became a point of discussion with some governments, reassessing their own rhetoric and policies in light of the Pope's moral clarity. Within Ukraine, the Pope's message was discussed not only in churches, but in schools, workplaces, and homes. Teachers used his words as a starting point for conversations about peace and justice, encouraging students to think critically about the causes and consequences of war. Parents found comfort in sharing the Pope's blessing with their children, hoping it might offer reassurance in uncertain times. The sense of being remembered and valued by the wider world was a source of strength for many. The Pope himself received letters and tokens of gratitude from Ukrainians and supporters worldwide. Some were simple notes of thanks, others contained stories of loss and resilience. He read many of them, personally moved by the depth of faith and courage expressed in each line. The correspondence reinforced his conviction that the Church's role was not only to pray for peace, but to advocate for it with unwavering resolve. As the international media continued to cover the aftermath of the greeting, commentators reflected on the significance of the Pope's intervention. Some argued that his words had shifted the moral landscape of the conflict, making it harder for world leaders to ignore the human cost of war. Others noted the risks involved, acknowledging that such a strong stance could provoke criticism or political backlash. Yet most agreed that the Pope's willingness to speak plainly had elevated the conversation, reminding all parties of their shared responsibility to seek peace. As the weeks passed, the Pope's message continued to resonate, both in Ukraine and across the global Catholic community. Parishes in other countries organized their own vigils and prayer services in solidarity with Ukraine, often quoting the Pope's words about the senselessness of war. Bishops from neighboring nations reached out to their Ukrainian counterparts, offering support and sharing resources for humanitarian relief. The sense of a worldwide spiritual network became more tangible as believers from diverse backgrounds united in prayer and action. In Rome, the Vatican's diplomatic corps worked quietly behind the scenes, leveraging the Pope's statement to encourage dialogue among political leaders. Envoys met with ambassadors and representatives from countries involved in or affected by the conflict, urging them to consider ceasefires, humanitarian corridors, and renewed negotiations. The Pope's moral authority gave added weight to these efforts, and while progress was slow, there were signs that his intervention had opened new channels of communication. Ukrainian leaders, both religious and secular, continued to reference the Pope's greeting in their speeches and public appearances. For them, his words were a source of legitimacy and hope, a reminder that their struggle was not being ignored. Local media kept the story alive regularly, updating the public on Vatican initiatives and the broader response from the international church. The Pope's call for practical support inspired new fundraising campaigns, medical missions, and educational programs for children displaced by the fighting. Among ordinary Ukrainians, the memory of the Pope's visit lingered. Survivors of bombed villages and cities spoke of the comfort they felt knowing that someone as influential as Pope Leo XIV had acknowledged their pain. Some described a renewed sense of purpose, channeling their grief into efforts to rebuild their communities or care for neighbors in need. Others found the courage to share their own stories, believing that their voices too might be heard beyond the borders of their war-torn country. As Easter approached, the Pope sent a special message to Ukraine, reiterating his prayers for peace and his solidarity with all who suffered. The message was broadcast in churches, town squares, and even makeshift shelters. For many, it was a reminder that hope could persist even in the darkest times, and that the search for peace was a sacred calling shared by all people of goodwill. The Pope's engagement with the Ukrainian people did not end with his initial greeting. In the weeks that followed, he made a point to highlight the ongoing humanitarian crisis in his public addresses and writings. His messages consistently emphasized the human cost of the conflict, urging the international community to prioritize aid and dialogue over political posturing. He called on Catholics worldwide to open their hearts and resources to those displaced and suffering, framing the crisis not only as a political or military issue, but as a profound moral challenge. This approach resonated deeply within the Church, inspiring dioceses and parishes across the globe to mobilize support. Fundraising campaigns were launched, medical supplies were sent, and volunteers organized relief efforts. The Pope's words had transformed abstract news reports into a tangible call to action, motivating ordinary believers to contribute in whatever way they could. Many recounted how their faith was strengthened by the Pope's example of compassion and leadership during a time of widespread despair. At the same time, the Pope maintained diplomatic pressure on world leaders. Through private meetings, letters, and appeals at international forums, he advocated for ceasefires and negotiations. His moral authority gave weight to these efforts, reminding political actors that the Church was watching and that justice demanded more than words. While the path to peace remained fraught with obstacles, the Pope's persistent engagement helped keep the issue at the forefront of global consciousness. Within Ukraine, the Pope's influence extended beyond spiritual comfort. His visit and messages sparked renewed efforts to preserve cultural and religious heritage threatened by the conflict. Churches damaged or destroyed in fighting became symbols of resilience, and efforts to restore them were often accompanied by prayers invoking the Pope's blessing. Clergy and lay people alike saw the preservation of faith and tradition as integral to the nation's recovery and identity. The Pope also encouraged dialogue among religious communities within Ukraine, recognizing the diverse tapestry of faiths affected by the war. He called for unity and mutual support, emphasizing that peace required cooperation across denominational lines. This ecumenical approach fostered initiatives that brought together leaders from different churches to coordinate aid and advocate for reconciliation. In a country divided by conflict, the Pope's call for spiritual solidarity offered a powerful counterpoint to the forces of division. As the conflict dragged on, the Pope's pastoral visits and messages became a lifeline for many. Letters from refugees and displaced persons poured into the Vatican expressing gratitude and sharing stories of survival and hope. The Pope's personal engagement with these testimonies underscored his commitment to the people of Ukraine, reinforcing the Church's role as a source of comfort and advocacy in times of crisis. The Pope's stance also sparked conversations within the broader Catholic community about the role of the Church in global conflicts. His willingness to speak out so clearly challenged some traditional notions of papal diplomacy, which often favored cautious neutrality. This shift prompted reflection on how religious leaders might balance spiritual leadership with moral responsibility in a complex and interconnected world. In academic and theological circles, the Pope's approach became a subject of study and debate. Scholars examined the implications of his language and actions, considering how they might influence future church engagement with issues of war and peace. The Pope's message was seen as a call to a more active and prophetic role for religious institutions, one that embraced both prayer and advocacy. Throughout this period, the Pope remained mindful of the risks involved in taking such a public stance. He was aware that his words could provoke backlash, both politically and within segments of the Church, yet his conviction that silence in the face of suffering was unacceptable guided his actions. This courage inspired many, reinforcing the idea that faith must be lived out boldly, especially in moments of crisis. The Pope's greeting to the 4,000 Ukrainians thus became more than a moment of solidarity. It marked the beginning of a sustained commitment to peace, justice, and healing. His leadership offered a model of compassionate engagement that transcended borders and politics, reminding the world of the enduring power of empathy and moral clarity. In the months that followed, the Pope's message to the Ukrainian people continued to echo across borders and generations. His willingness to share in their pain and call the war senseless became a touchstone for countless individuals seeking hope in the midst of tragedy. While the conflict's hardships persisted, the Pope's words inspired new acts of compassion and resilience both within Ukraine and throughout the global community. For many, his greeting was more than a gesture. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, solidarity and moral courage can break through isolation and despair. Communities found renewed strength in unity, and the Church's commitment to justice and peace became a living example for others to follow. The Pope's legacy in this moment was not just in the headlines or the halls of power, but in the quiet faith and perseverance of those who refused to let suffering have the final word. As the world looked on, the Pope's greeting to 4,000 Ukrainians stood as a testament to the enduring power of empathy and to the belief that even amid senseless conflict, the voice of conscience can inspire hope and healing.